Every year, my friend and I get out of the bustle of the city for fishing with an overnight stay. For 2 days and 2 nights, all we do is fish and tell different stories. Life in the city is full of hustle and bustle. And here clean air, a forest and a river that runs exactly along the edge of the forest. Where we usually stop, the place is deserted and is located very far from the city. And from the nearest settlements there is only an abandoned village, which we pass every time we go there. That it is abandoned, I never doubted. Somehow in between we went into it. From the appearance of the buildings, it seemed that the last people left there at least 10 years ago. Yes, it is not surprising. When they were in it, they did not see a single pillar. Apparently, in this village there was not even gas. Apparently, they did not even hear about electricity in it. What was the name of this village? Neither I nor my friend knew, and we jokingly called her a relic. Why is that? And everything is very simple. Here in such villages, before they die, old people are left to live out their lives, who either have nowhere to go or who already need nothing from this life in such places. They are the last living people who can be found, and with their death, the village itself dies. We called it that as a joke, laughing, but both of us understood that in fact there are such places. And laughter is not very appropriate here. But from our place to this village, after all, it's about 7 kilometers for sure. So it didn't really annoy our eyes and didn't lead us to terrible thoughts. The sun was slowly setting below the horizon. I sat on a log and carefully watched the float. The bite here was just right. The fish, not scared in this river, packed perfectly, and Earl, meanwhile, was picking with firewood, went into the forest, collected dry branches and dragged them to the fire. I was lucky with a friend. He liked to make fires, as he always said when I was going to help him. Come on, calm down, I'll look after the fire myself, when it's still possible to burn it. And after that I left for a new armful of firewood. That's right, I thought then, it's impossible in the city, and here, at least burn all night. No one will say a word. After the supply of firewood was replenished, the tents were set up. We began to poison stories, sitting by the fire and occasionally glancing at the floats, singing foamy drinks. I haven't had such a rest for a long time, I said, looking at the reflection of the stars in the water. And that's right, said Earl. Too bad I won't be able to come here next year. And what is it? Yes, things are above the roof. You need to go there. You need to hear. Everything is needed everywhere. There is no time at all. And when are you going to live? I asked. You and I leave once a year, but it seems to me that this is infrequent. Yes, I know, Earl replied, but when to live, yes, the devil knows somehow later. I was about to ask something when I was interrupted by the crackling of branches on the right. I jumped off the log and grabbed a stake by the fire. Earl followed suit. Judging by the sound, someone was breaking through the bushes, and, apparently, a large one. And most likely, this is not a person. There is nowhere for him to come from. We stood and watched as the sound got closer. A minute later, Grandfather crawled out of the bushes. He was overgrown like a goblin. Burdock was entangled in his beard, and he himself was dressed in a soiled quilted jacket, tattered trousers and ears. "Oh, hello, sons," he said. "And I'm walking along the forest for some reason. Look, fire. Well, I think the fire or someone sits. And here you are. Well, let Grandfather go to the fire or drive him in the neck. By the way, my name is Christopher. We dropped the sticks, Carl," I said, shaking my grandfather's hand. "Earl," my friend introduced himself. "Well, so we met," said Grandfather Christopher, sat down on a log and looked at us slyly. "Well, sons, maybe for a meeting," he suggested, turning back the collar, through which the edge of the glass neck peeped out. "No, We have our own, I replied, nodding towards the river. Worth cooling? Well, this is not serious. Somehow upset, said the grandfather. I also recently met some here. They regaled me with theirs, but there was no sense from it. Yes. Frank, so, support your grandfather. No, I replied. It's too early. Well, as you know. But I won't refuse my pleasure, he said, and took out a bottle of greenish cloudy color. It looked, frankly, so-so, but out of politeness, I said nothing. Listen, grandfather, Earl asked, but how did you end up here? There seem to be no villages nearby, and the one that is, no one lives in it. I mean, no one lives. Christopher was indignant. I live there, one might say. The last person for 200 miles around. How do you even live here? There is nothing here, no electricity, no gas, and even if you get sick, there is nowhere to go. This is the city light for you and the hospital. I can't remember the last time I got sick. And all why? Because there is fresh nature, and yes, good from the garden. When Christopher blurted out about the garden, a suspicious thought crept into my head. And whether he was driving over our ears, I was in that village. Yes, Earl too. Their weeds be healthy and no hints of a vegetable garden. Although with the same success, his garden may be somewhere off to the side. Although it is also unlikely, why plant a garden outside the village if you need to constantly look after it? And I didn't see any residential buildings there. Although maybe Christopher will somehow clarify the situation. Listen, I said. We were in that village. We didn't see any residential houses in it. And rightly so, that they did not see, agreed Christopher. I live in the cellar. I equipped myself there with something like a house. Yes, I live on the sly. Otherwise the houses are all lopsided. If not today, tomorrow. Look and fill up. And the cellar is strong. It will stand for 100 years and nothing will happen. Where is your garden? I didn't let up garden. Yes, right there in the forest. By the way, I was walking from him. I met you before, he answered. So, support old man. Grandfather shook the container, which during our short conversation he managed to kiss twice already. Come on, said Earl. We will support you. And you will tell us what happened to the village and how you ended up alone. And then we have to sit here for a long time. There is time to listen. Oh, this is our way, Christopher admired and handed me a container. And to hell, I said, come what may, and kissed the neck. The potion was deadly after 2 sips. 5 minutes later I was so stormy that I decided that, perhaps, I would sit silently and listen. From the look on his face, Earl didn't expect this either. But Christopher sat and drank it like water. Well, since you supported me, now I will tell you what happened to this village. Our village used to be a wilderness even before. But I'll tell you, agriculture here was what we needed. Once a week a food truck came by, and they paid no money at all, and, you know, it wasn't about them. We worked hard, but we were happy, and the people, by the way, were much more, not like now. Christopher laughed, and now I'm the only one left. And the trouble came gradually, in small imperceptible steps. At first, one field was not sown, then the second, then the farm was dismantled, where the cows were kept, and you know, it somehow happened gradually, imperceptibly to the eye. First, as usual, the youth, which we had in abundance, moved out. I myself was not old then. I would be a fool to know what's what, and I kept shrugging it off. I thought everything would settle down, and really got tired. We lived for some time normally, but the people who could have already left. Only the most desperate remained, or those like me, who have nowhere to go, and somehow, year after year, unemployment undermined our village. And in the end, in 1 year, we learned that everything, no one else would plant anything here. Farms are not needed, and you live as you wish. Well, What are we to do? They stayed and lived as best they could. Troubled times. I remember everything is in a fog. Everyone dragged to his home everything that lay badly, lay even personally, with my own hands. Knocked down the wooden poles on which the wires used to hang, and fitted them into the household. The truck was still running for a while, thank you. They should probably say for it. Yes, I did wrong with them. How was it with us? They knew us. We knew them, therefore. They gave food on credit, and I, not embarrassed, scored a decent amount from them. Before they realized that everything here fell apart and no one was going to pay them. Well, what? Where to go? Something to eat. This is good for those who had relatives in the city. They will live after all, but I, and even a dozen people, had nowhere to go, and it would seem. That's all brought to the handle. There is no help, no light, and from food, only what you plant yourself is what you eat. So, it's as if this is not enough, and the weather spoiled life. It hit, as I remember now, frost. 25 degrees, but there was no snow. It had not yet fallen, and the whole garden froze. All the trees had to be cut down in the spring. I was completely desperate then. I think that's how I'll die of starvation in my house. But one summer, a very good thought came to me. Grandpa Christopher shook his finger and smiled. I also sat on the bank of the river, like you. I caught fish, and I looked at the visitors. I was jealous. In cars, dressed, shod, laughing at something. It's funny to them. But I think that in the winter I'll eat something, and then a brilliant idea came to me. What if I have a vegetable garden for my household? Yes, that's not simple, but to plant himself. And I only come for food. Then I looked at those fishermen and I thought, well, for sure, the idea is good. But how to implement something? They are kind of strong, but I am weak, old. I can hardly move my legs, and I realized that I had to take them by cunning. I made a special stand at home, which I won't talk about. Yes, and he said drinking it himself. Slowly, little by little, I got used to it day by day, and when it stopped acting on me, I decided, well, it's time. I came to such fishermen, but I'm pretending to be a fool. Like, pity the good people, do not drive in the neck. There are no people. There is even no one to sit sincerely with, and they something that they only and are happy. They will drink a sip of my broth, and that's it. Paralysis. Don't scream. Don't run. Don't do anything. And for me, an old man, this is only for the good. I took a hatchet hand, and then slowly dragged them like this into the forest. I have a place there where meat is stored for a long time. I have enough in a neat one for the winter. I eat a little. I would like to get up and laugh, saying, what a joker you are, grandfather. Yeah, I just realized that I can't. The body seemed to be petrified, and in the meantime, grandfather got up from the log, looked at us, and took out a small hatchet from under the padded jacket. Don't judge, sons. I will do everything quickly. You won't even have time to understand, he said and swung at Earl.